Yo, 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 what is going on, golf fans? It's your boy, Gsluke here with our round 2 live stream for the Houston Open. Here we're going to break down the prop and betting side of things, get you guys an idea of what to do over there for your exposure tomorrow, whether it's on sites like Underdog and Prize Picks. The pick'em sites will get you covered from that side, as well as with any underdog bets, matchups, maybe some three balls over there on the sportsbook side as well, plus any questions that you have down in the chat. So we already have Joe down there, so welcome on in. Hopefully you're having a fantastic Thursday yourself. Say hi, whether you're here on the replay crew after the fact or already down there in the live chat, and also smash that like button as you get in here as well. Let's pump up those numbers, try and get this out there to even more people, and we'll hop on into all the analysis out here for Friday. So first things first, like to take a look at what we had out here for round 1, which was pretty erratic conditions. Really, the scoring conditions were going up and down throughout the day. Early on with the heavy rain, it was playing over a stroke over par, but it was pretty beautiful out there for the last few hours. The AM wave ended up right about an even par average, but the PM wave, there were spots of rain maybe for an hour or two early. You also had some really windy conditions out there towards the end, and then maybe the last hour or so of play today, and a few guys still have to go out there and finish their round tomorrow, where it actually ended up raining for about the last hour. So conditions were, like I said, erratic to say the least. Then out here for tomorrow, it's an even worse situation, I would say. A lot of these forecasts are calling for thunderstorms in the afternoon. And when you take a look at each of these different models in particular, they're telling us a different thing. Like, for example, looks pretty calm over here on the HRRR, which is usually our go-to when it comes to these forecasts, with a lot of the rain coming in the afternoon. But this NAM forecast, for on the other hand, right, has a lot of the wind over there in the morning. I'm sure still the storms over there in the afternoon, but the more and more of the models we go through, like GFS, for example, has a lot of wind out there in the morning hours, and then it getting really calm over there in the afternoon. They all have their own little twist out there on what they expect. And when you take a look at a lot of the local weather forecast, they have rain all day over there in their forecast. Like from 7 a.m. the whole way until 7 p.m. tomorrow, they have rain just across the board. And pretty much all of them, AccuWeather, weather.com, all the big ones that you have out here for Houston are calling for thunderstorms in the afternoon. So you can see that on this icon model right here in the afternoon, some thunderstorms. ECM, I think the same thing. Yeah, some thunderstorms out there towards 3-4. And GFS, they don't have the thunderstorms over there on the modeling, but the last update, the one that they had earlier today, also had those thunderstorms throughout the day. So it's going to be very hard to predict whether there's going to be any sort of stoppages. Of course, right, if those storms do come through and there's electricity in the air, they're going to have to stop play for that storm coming through. And based on what we see over here, there's a chance that that is most of the afternoon wave. So the reason why I say it is such a hard slate to go out there and predict the weather is because the PM wave for tomorrow might be playing over here on Saturday, which if that were the case, by the way, conditions for Saturday look extremely calm, would throw a massive wrench right out there into any sort of exposure that you're going with. So you're going to want to check sites like Underdog and Prize Picks. There are rules when it comes to having play suspended. Some of them treat it differently than others, right? If they have it for a specific day, some sites will only honor it if they play that round on that specific day. Then other sites will actually let it stand out there until the next day and then just settle it up when they actually play that specific round. So just make sure that you know all those local rules for each book that you're playing. And based on these weather forecasts, I really don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to be keeping a close eye on these over the next few hours or so. But to go back to the weather forecast, that is exactly what happened today, right? We had a lot of sporadic weather. We had periods of dry weather, periods of really rainy weather that came through, calm, and then also the really windy stuff out there in the afternoon. So I would expect a scoring average in the same sort of ballpark. Like, I don't think it's going to drastically change in one direction or the other, but let's say that it's really clear for one wave out of the two, right? That could actually play under par, I'd say. That's within the realm of possibilities, but when all this rain comes down, right, if they have these guys out there on the golf course, that side might play a half a stroke to a stroke over par. So that's why I don't think this is the best slate to go out there and bet props. You guys know I'm always going to be super transparent about these given slates. For DFS, I think there's a lot of unknown out there as well, right over there from the showdown side. And same thing over here on props. So personally, I'm going to be scaling back my exposure a little bit, at least for right now, with all these different models telling us different things. But still some exposure I'm going to go ahead and throw out there. It's just that, ahead of time, I kind of know that we have all of that variance, all of that unknown, and I'm not going to be surprised, right, if some wacky stuff happens tomorrow. Let's put it that way. Outside of the weather, we like to look at the pin locations out there for each round as well. And what I'll say going through some of these pins is that a few of them do look a hair easier than what we had for round number 1, but they're trying to keep them on some high spots because of all the rain that's forecasted. They call it high and dry when they have the sort of rain in the forecast like we do. And what they essentially try and do, right, is keep it out of a lot of the bowls because that's where the water tends to settle on these green complexes. And, if it were to rain hard like it could over there towards midday in the afternoon, then you could have stoppages of play, not even just because of that thunder, but also because of puddling up on some of the greens. So, hole number 1 is a great example of that. It's up on a little bit of a ridge. 13, the same thing. 17, it's also up on a ridge. 10, pretty much every hole that you see out of these 18, it's not on that low spot where you're going to see it out there for moving day, for example. So these sort of pins are by default a little bit harder than the most pins that you see, just because they have to protect against the weather a little bit. Now, it's not a Sunday pin, right? They're going to try and give you some gettable ones. So like 2, 6, 4, 5, all of those are pretty gettable, like a 7 and 11. Those aren't difficult pins at all. 14, 16, even 18, I'd say is a more gettable pin than what you had for today. But you have a hair, some more difficult ones mixed in there as well. So 9's another one where it's high and dry there in the back, right? 10 is there on top of that little shelf. There are some ones that are going to make up, right, for the easy ones that they're giving them. So I don't think any drastic change when it comes to these scoring averages, but I've got a take on how we can incorporate this on the prop side here as well. So we catch up on chat. We're going to go through some prize pick stuff first. Then we'll talk about some underdog stuff after, which I haven't gotten the slip over there on the underdog side yet. So we'll have to do some line shopping together and see what we can find. But yeah, 2 props I've already taken on prize picks. But before we do so, let's see what we got. So looks like Joseph is on Minwoo this week. Okay, best of luck with all of your exposure there. I've got to say, a heck of a round 1 for you. So you're probably feeling pretty good about it. Say good evening. Looking forward to the Chaos Friday. I know it ahead of time, right? There could be a delay. You might have a Saturday finish out there for round number 2. We'll see how it shakes out. I'm just expecting something out of right field to happen at this point. He said, talking yourself up to your golfing buddies. I haven't done that for quite some time. He said, Finau less than Schmid in a birdie matchup. So you've got Schmid making more birdies, right? A tie would obviously favor Schmid because they're only going with the 0.5 birdie matchup at this point. That is one I'd consider for the under because Schmid is a high birdie percentage guy himself. He's maybe not an elite tier guy in that category, but I'm not against that sort of under. I think in general, if you take unders on those matchups, as long as it's on somebody that has a pulse when it comes to their birdie percentage, then you're going to feel pretty good about what you're doing. So I'm not against that at all. Is it enough golf talk? Are our Steelers going to sign Rodgers? Hey, I like the aside. We can always field questions over there for football. This is a football channel after all as well, as a lot of you guys know. He said, you hope not. Thanks again for the content. Yeah, so my mom tends to agree with you, Bo. My mom doesn't want them to sign Aaron Rodgers. I know a few other Steeler fans as well that don't feel like he fits in with the city. I feel like they are going to sign him. All the signs kind of point to it at this point, especially with Russ signing with the Giants. But I hope it doesn't happen. I hope that they just sign a quarterback. They have their guy in the draft. I've heard a few rumors that they do have a guy that they want to take at quarterback, but they're not guaranteed to have him drop to him, is what I heard as well. So not going to say anything more than that, but that's what I hope happens. I hope that they can just get their quarterback through the draft, maybe stink it up this year. If they need to break that over 500 record this year, then so be it, right? I'd rather get our quarterback in the future. You're looking at Pendrith over 3.5 birdies. Well, I've got an over at 3.5 birdies that I like, but yeah, Pendrith, not the worst option. But let me tell you why I think the PM guys could be better. So why I wouldn't take a Pendrith myself. So I like a Matt McNeely over here at his tee time is at 2:03 p.m. like you see over here for Friday. He's a PM wave tee time. And just to go back to these forecasts, if they have thunderstorms in the PM and they don't have to play tomorrow, if they finish up on Saturday, just to show you guys the forecast over there, it is pretty much perfect. You can actually see that there's a little bit more wind now than what they were calling for before, but this NAM is a pretty good forecast for a little bit over a day out. You can see they're calling for just a little bit of wind out there towards like 10, 11 a.m., but they'll be finishing up by probably like 9, 10 at the worst case, right? If they're finishing up on a Saturday. So low winds, low gusts out there compared to today, or at least tomorrow. Then if you look at the Meteo Blue, we'll look at HRRR as well. Like Meteo Blue looks very calm out there for Saturday. And then HRRR, which isn't going to be fully loaded in quite yet, just because it's a little bit too far out to be looking at all of Saturday. But they do have all of the daylight right already loaded in for Saturday there, and you can see it's calm, right? Sub 5 miles an hour of sustained wind, sub 15 mile an hour wind gusts over there the entire day. So if there's any possibility, right, that play is going to bleed out there into Saturday, these guys would get a massive advantage. So that's a little bit of a, I guess, something to hold in your back pocket, right, on anyone with a PMT time. But the other thing that I really like is the plus EV value. So if you just take a look at his line over here on a site like Draftkings, which is posting birdie lines they have over the last month or so, which is a nice change compared to what they were doing before. Usually it was just stroke stuff that they were posting before this recent stretch. You can see here he's minus 145 for his over. So that is well into that plus EV range, right? If you're looking for those sort of props. Now, ideally, right, you'd want this to be in like a 4 or 5 man card. But anytime you're getting that minus 145 juice, that's something that a lot of those signal markers, people that have like programs that send them signals out there on bets, that sort of thing, over here on like Underdog Prize Picks. I'm talking like optimizers out there with the props that you may have seen in the industry. Minus 145 odds is kind of what you're looking for, right? Out there in those sort of props. Minus 150 is pretty decent as well. What I'll say about these guys at 3.5 is there's a few guys on the board. I know we had a Minwoo fan right down there in chat before. Maybe they took him off the board. He was at 3.5 birdies, but he was minus 150 for his over. A Sahith Thagala is minus 150 for his over. And it looks like they may have actually taken those two off the board, I guess, probably because they are minus 150 for the over there on books. But a Mav McNeely here, right, that hasn't been ripped off quite yet. He's minus 145, so almost those same odds. And here's the real kicker out there with Mav. Let me bring up the shots gain metrics. So I meant to have the bet the number stuff up before, but we'll do that here real quickly. Is that he gained from tee to green, really hit the ball well over here for round one, and then did not gain with the putter. So just to show you that out there with Maverick, he gained 0.8 off the tee, gained over there with the approach play and around the green. And you can see there, lost over stroke putting. Yet despite that, right, despite not having the putter out there today, he still made 4 birdies or better. So would have gone over that sort of line. And we know him as one of the best putters that we have out there on all the PGA Tour. He's got a soft golf course now. It'll be even softer after some of that rain tomorrow. And let's say worst case scenario, right? Because it's not always going to work out exactly how we want it to. Let's say that he has to play through some rain out there tomorrow afternoon. We did that same thing today, right? He played through rain his first 2 hours of play out there this morning, and he still had 4 birdies without his putter, right? So if you just default him out there to what he had today, right, it wasn't the worst case scenario to begin with, let alone the upside, right, if we have that delay out there tomorrow afternoon. So that's the idea over there with the Maverick McNeely over. A little bit of plus EV value, a little bit of a potential weather edge. We'll see if that works out for us. I'm not counting on it right out here on this sort of prop. It's more so the built-in value that we're getting over there with the DraftKings odds and the shots gained metrics, right? We always like guys that are gaining tee to green because that's the most sustainable part of golf, the most repeatable part of golf out there from round to round. So that's why we focus on it so much. And not even just tee to green, but especially ball striking, which is just off the tee and approach play. Those are really the 2 key stats that we honed in on, and he gained over a stroke out there between those categories. Then the other prop I took was an under on fairways, and that was an under on Rasmus Højgaard fairways, who I got to say, I love Rasmus, literally one of my top 3 favorite players that I have in the world. DP World Tour, my favorite player on that side. So now he's on the PGA Tour. We'll have to see where he ranks out. But at 7 fairways, this is just too high of a line for him. And there's a couple of reasons for this. First off, the average today was 6.8 per round. So it was lower than the 7 mark, but he is not an accurate driver. And I think that is probably the nicest way to put it. He misses a ton of fairways, and it's because he hits the ball a long way. His brother Nikolai is the same way, right? They hit the ball a long way and kind of sacrifice that accuracy for the distance. But Rasmus is even more so like that because he's got a longer swing. He has the full back turn. He's got a higher ball speed, higher club head speed than what you have there with Nikolai, which causes him to be a little bit more wayward with the driver. You saw that today. I believe he hit like 42% of his fairways or something like that. So just to double check, yeah, he hit 46% of his fairways, which I think means he hit 6 out of his 13. So would have gone under that sort of line today. And that was with making like 7 birdies and shooting -4, right? When this guy's not playing his best golf, a lot of times it's because he's spraying it a little bit with the driver. And in the morning, some of these weather forecasts, just to go back to them over here, are calling for some nasty wind over there on Friday morning. So not so much this HRRR that we have up there, but like I said, they are so different, right, across the board. We really have no idea what conditions are going to look like tomorrow. But like the GFS, that looks pretty damn windy, right? ECM, it's got some rain over there in the morning. This Icon's got some rain and some wind over there tomorrow morning. It could be dicey for some of those morning wave players, or it could be beautiful for all we know, right? These weathermen really aren't doing us any favors with what they're showing us with these models. But even in perfect conditions, Rasmus would be a decent under here, because let's say in perfect conditions, the average for the field goes up to about 7 per round. I think without a bunch of wind, that could happen, right? Best case scenario for the field. Even if that's the case, Rasmus misses a lot more fairways than he hits, and this would be a decent under with the push equity there at 7. If it's down there at 6.8 per round, it's even better value, right, than what we'd have in that sort of circumstance. So that's the idea on those two. That is the first slip that I went out there and entered myself. This pays 3x, and look at that. Mav got taken off the board live because we know the lines makers like to watch all this content live. So I guess if you were here, you're able to catch that before they took it off the board. Nice. If you're looking for a replacement, there were a few other guys that I was looking at from the PM wave. So they didn't have odds on Harry Hall, but today he did get to 3 out of 3.5 birdies. Did not have his best stuff out there on the greens. Didn't really make anything over like 15 feet. I think he had 1 birdie he made from like 20 feet today, but outside of that, wasn't getting anything to drop. Like, he's another PM wave guy that you could take that is a top 10 birdie maker this year, was top 5 last year, and all the PGA Tour at birdie or better percentage. But if I was going to take an over on birdies, it's not like you have to only take PM wave guys, but I would focus on that side of things, just because there's the odd chance that they get the nutted conditions right out there for the final round. So that's what I'll say over there on the prize pick side. On Underdog, we're going to go through a few props over here. So one that was kind of standing out, and I want to see what they have for the odds right now. So when I was looking at this earlier, they had Rory at -135. So let me see if that still stands. Actually, they even bumped that down to 67.5. And I guess we'll check over here on Fanduel then to see where they have his odds. So look at that. He's down there at 67.5. And only -150 for the over. So at 68.5 strokes, he's a PM wave player. And just like the overs on birdies, right? They were thinking for the PM wave guys. If for some reason, and you can't count on this happening, but it is something that you at least consider out here with these different props. If you give me a plus EV value, you give me something that's a 1-stroke discrepancy compared to the books, and a potential weather edge, right? That's where I like to take some of these sort of spots. Now, the other side of this is going to be the issue. There are probably some fades that we can take here, but just like we did on prize picks, I almost prefer fading some of the morning guys, just because like there's a chance that it's rain and wind tomorrow morning. Like, we have no idea what's going to happen with the weather, but if it's a monsoon out there, they could get blown off the course. By the way, Mav, if you didn't catch that one before, you can take that over here on Underdog. And speaking of, for our potential slip over here on this side, let me see if they still have Thagala up. I can't type right now. So there's Thagala. So yeah, they ended up taking that one off. And then it was Minwoo Lee they also had at 3.5. See, so they do have him up there at 3.5. Now, if you took these three, it'd be a terrible payout, right? 3.81x. Let me see what the 2 birdie lines would be. So that would be 2.58x. So maybe let's throw Rory back in there. Obviously, I took the Mav line over there on prize picks already, so I'm not looking to go out there and take that again. I wouldn't be completely against taking this sort of slip, just because I do think both are value. Just to show you this over here with the other prop, right? We already looked at the Rory line there, but I'll show you guys the Minwoo odds over here on books. He's -150 out there for the over. So if you thought the -145 was decent odds, that -150 is going to be even better. The issue is, or the thing I'd like to go out here and accomplish, is to potentially find a fade to mix in to fix the payout multiplier. Because just to show you guys what that would look like, this is just a random projection that I was clicking in there. If we can find a fade, we can get the payout over a 6x payout here. So that would be a little bit better than this 2.58x here. That is I don't know. It's not terrible, but it's not great. Let's put it that way. Like on Prize Picks, if we had these lines available, right, it would be 2.75x. Which, speaking of, yeah, they have Rory down at 68 strokes now. I thought that they already bumped that one down, and then we already know what they did with the Minwoo and Pendy props, that sort of stuff. Let's see. So doesn't seem to be a ton of discrepancies between the books. Like if there are any on these, they seem to be 0.5 discrepancies for the very most. I kind of want to see what they have for this Thomas Dietrich line on books, and then also JJ Spawn when it comes to their strokes lines. And I don't particularly love fading either player just because they've been playing in pretty decent form, but I want to see what they have for the odds. So JJ Spawn over here, this is actually pretty wild. He's minus 165 for the under. I actually thought I would be going the other direction, and they have him juiced super heavily down there towards the under. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but that would be another spot that you could potentially look at for an under. The fade value isn't going to be here, is it? Like, I know the Minwoo's decent odds. We had the same thing out there with Rory, like minus 165 odds. I've got to say that's pretty hard to want to pass up there. Let's see what they have for Dietrich. So Dietrich is a little bit closer to even money. The Spawn stuff, I've got to know why they're doing that. Is it shots gained wise? Is he just really killing it on approach? Yeah, that's right. That's why I'm playing him over there in my showdown lineups for tomorrow. He gained over 3 strokes in approach out there today, and despite that, only shot +1. The issue with taking an AM wave player like that, though, is that we aren't certain what conditions are going to look like, right? They could be a lot worse than what they're projecting for. So that's why I kind of shade towards these top 2 players. And it's not like we know what's going to happen with them either, right? There's still a lot of unknown there, but the unknown with these 2 players could be a huge positive, right? Whereas with the other side of things, the unknown could be a huge negative when it comes to those conditions. So those 2 would probably be my favorites. You know, Jason Day, I don't think the odds are going to be any crazy on that fade there, but let's see what they have. I feel like these sports books think it's going to play easier than it probably is. Like, for example, right, he's minus 150 under, right? I thought if anything, maybe they'd have him juiced towards the over, but they obviously don't agree with that. Tony Finau, he's got to be juiced way under too, right? If they have all these other guys there, yeah, he's also minus 165 for the under. And checking over here on Prize Picks, have they started to move these lines yet? So yes, JJ Spawn's already moved down by 0.5. Where is Tony Finau? So yeah, he's already been moved down by 0.5. They've already started to move a lot of these over there on that side of things. So I guess if you're going to try and trust the books, right, take some of those AM wave players, you could do it over here on Underdog. I'm personally not going to do that, at least as of right now, right? Tomorrow morning, I'm going to be waking up early before play starts. I'm going to take a look at the weather forecast, kind of see if things have changed at all. Maybe we have a more reliable or more consistent weather forecast, right, across the different models that we have available. If that's the case and it looks calm tomorrow, like I could see myself adding some of these plays out there, like specifically the Tony Finau one, maybe the JJ Spawn, right? With both of those at minus 165 odds. But as of right now, I'm personally not comfortable enough to go out there and do so. In fact, with this 2.58x payout, I'm probably not even comfortable to go out there and enter these 2 out there for a 2-man slip. So I'm probably just going to stick to that first slip that we took. If you weren't able to catch that one over there with Maverick, you can, of course, enter that over here. I'm not sure if they're going to take those fairway lines and enter them over here in Underdog. They've been doing that for a lot of slates lately. So let's see. Do they have it up there yet? So they haven't done that over there with Rasmus yet. But if they post them at 7, right, you could always take that under over there and then mix it in with that Mav prop, or even take Maverick and mix it in with one of those other plus EV plays that we have, right? Whether that's Rory, who's also in the PM wave. That would probably be my favorite out of all of them, would be to take these 2 over here in Underdog. If you guys didn't catch that other slip there live on the live stream. But outside of like these sort of props right now, I would just play the wait and see game. But honestly, just be patient, right? Sometimes the best play is to not play at all, right? You've probably heard that quote before out there. And from a lot of people, it's true though, right? Sometimes the best play is to not go out there and play at all. It's to sit back, wait for some data, see what happens out there at the weather forecast, and then go out there and pounce. Now, it doesn't mean that doing the research, all of that isn't important, right? Because you got to know what to expect when you go out there and get that data, right? Don't be reacting, right? Be anticipating what's going to happen and have a game plan to go out there and take advantage. So for example, right, we'll go through this together so we can get an idea of what we'd expect. there's a chance that tomorrow morning, the weather forecast for the morning, right, clears up, especially if this HRRR forecast, which I will say historically is the most accurate of all these different forecasts that we have. I mean, if it's going to be like this tomorrow morning, this sort of forecast on the HRRR, then maybe you load up on those like unders on finals, those guys at 69.5, like JJ Spawn. However, right, on the flip side, right, we got to talk about the opposite side of it. If it looks like it's going to be windy tomorrow morning and rainy, like some of these other forecasts are calling for, right, does the 180 flip like we talked about before, then you might want to fade some of those guys, right? Might not want to play anything at all. Maybe get some bumps down, right? So those odds at minus 160 odds, they're probably going to move in some cases. If that happens, tomorrow morning, if the weather ends up being shitty, right, then you fade those bumps, right? The ones that bump down to like even number props, then you can go out there and fade a lot of those different spots. So that's what you kind of want to know ahead of time, or the kind of projections that you want to be eyeing in each different circumstance, so that when you're rubbing the salt out of your eyes tomorrow morning, like I will be, I'm not always used to waking up that early in the morning. Usually by 8 something I'm up. So I guess I shouldn't be complaining that much, but like I have an idea of what I'm going to do, right? It's not going to be like it's super early in the morning. I haven't had my coffee yet. I don't know how to adjust for some of the weather forecast. I'm going to have a pretty good idea, right, of what to go out there and do. So over there on my Patreon page, I'll be posting all the different pieces of exposure that I'm getting to. We went through and brainstormed a lot of different props that you can go out there and play yourself. But for everything that I'm actually entering myself, where I'm putting all my money out there for any given slate, that is what the Patreon page is for. On there, I post all the different slips as I get to them, so you can try and get those before any sort of line movement. Now, if you're busy, right, you can't catch a slip out there for an hour or two. Sometimes there's going to end up being some bumps, because that's what happens when the bookmakers respect your action like they do with me. But for the most part, we'll catch a lot of the different slips before that movement. So Patreon page is the place to be for all of that. And I also still do have the projections up for DFS over there for any given slate. So just want to remind you guys that I have these posted over there on the Patreon as well. You can see on there that I've got my player pool out there for round 2 showdown, also including the player pool tags, which have become a really popular characteristic little ad that I had over there on the Patreon. Something that I was experimenting with for a while, not just giving you guys my player pool for any given slate, but also the why on every single player, right? Because I'm a firm believer that you shouldn't have anyone in your player pool for any given slate for no reason, right? There shouldn't just be like somebody that you randomly have in there. There should always be a rhyme and reason that you're getting to any given play. So I give you guys that exact reason on every single player. So you've got the ownership on there. This is just the top end of the board there. You can see I'm playing Rory McIlroy for a little bit of short game regression. So I'm expecting him to be a little bit better with the around the green and the putting. And then JJ Spawn, I mean, we already talked about the shots gained approach a little bit earlier, but I really like what we saw out there with the iron play today. So those are the sort of players that I'll be on out there for round number 2. But for all of those projections, right, everything that is blacked out down there, again, including player pool tags for every single player that I'm getting to, make sure to check out the Patreon page for that as well. Let me bring up our projection sites again. Looks like we have a few comments to go through, which, by the way, if you have any specific questions, feel free to go ahead and fire those down in the chat right now. And yeah, we'll be here for probably another 3 to 4 minutes. I'm going to go through some matchup stuff as well. So don't be too rushed to get those questions down in the chat. But if you want them answered, just make sure you get it down there in the next 5 minutes or so. Also, if you're just joining us, smash that like button if you guys haven't already, and subscribe so you guys don't miss any of the content going forward, as well as the rounds 3 and 4 live streams that we're doing. So where do we leave off? So Golf asked about Scotty's approach stats today. He said he thought he was hitting good shots, but the spin was ripping them back. Yeah, he was very frustrated. I think that was partially why. You saw some emotion from him today. I kind of worry that he luck sacked it with the putter too. So he's capable of bouncing back. It wouldn't surprise us at all, right, if he went out there and flushed it out there and approaching off the tee. But he was a little bit off today, that's for sure. What's going on, Kyle? Said Thigala under 69.5 is still out there. Would I prefer the birdies or better prop, though? So, yeah, they didn't have the birdie prop posted on either of these two sites. Let me actually just double check on that in Sahith. Yeah, so they ended up ripping that off. It's 69.5. I'm assuming that's also plus EV value. And if all those other guys were juiced towards the under. But he is only minus 135 in that direction. So, yeah, I liked the birdie line a little bit more, just because if we go over here to like the birdie or better board, he's minus 150 in terms of the odds there. So, you know, if you're on a prop site like Underdog Prize Picks, right, you don't have to pay those minus 150 odds. That's the idea why we're looking for some of those props that are juiced so heavily. But if you're entering it on DraftKings, right, I would probably go with the strokes prop. They're at minus 135. But yeah, if you're on one of the sites like Underdog and Prize Picks, I'm always a proponent of going after the best line value available. And that would be it for Thigala. What do I think about Wyndham for an over on strokes? So I would probably stay away from that one just because the sportsbook odds are going the other direction. But here's what I would do with a Wyndham Clark. So let me get to the right category. Let's get to round scores as opposed to the birdies there. You can see he's minus 165 for the under. So super heavily juiced out there in that direction. I would be a little hesitant about it just because of that. But what you can do, right, is if we end up getting a flip in the forecast tomorrow, we wake up before lock and it looks like it's going to be a little bit windier tomorrow morning than what they were calling for before, then you go out there and fade Wyndham Clark after the bumps, because with those sort of odds, right, he's at 69 over here on Prize Picks. So if you want to go out there and take that line now, you already have it 0.5 lower. And on a site like Underdog, it wouldn't surprise me at all that if some point that Clark either bumps down to 69, like you have over there in Prize Picks, or if you get a multiplier right out there towards the under. So in either case, right, you can go out there and get a slightly better line than what you can get now. And I would say that there's a really good chance that that goes out there and happens. So I would wait on that a little bit. If you can get this plus 110, right, it's a completely different story, right? Because if you're just talking about betting it over there in the books, then you could bet it right now for straight at that sort of number. But I would probably wait for the weather. As I mentioned before, just keep your exposure light, right? Like find a few props that you really think are value. Like that under on Rasmus, it doesn't matter the conditions, right? I like that under just because he's inaccurate off the tee. Then that over on Maverick, right? Like I said, even if he has to play through some rain like he had today, he got the job done without his putter. So just be really picky about what you're taking, because there could be a lot of variance out there with these forecasts. See anything else? Alrighty, so some matchup stuff I wanted to go through, and normally my go-to for finding these matchup bets is to try and find the players that hit the ball the best, matched up against guys that are maybe a little bit more hairy. And, I think JJ Spawn could be a player that we can take a look at. We could go Keith Mitchell. He gained significantly across both categories. Let's see what we can find for those two players. So let's go Keith Mitchell, JJ Spawn, who, by the way, I know Keith Mitchell is a Georgia Bulldog. I'm not sure about Spawn. I always thought he was, but I might be wrong about that. New 3-ball specials. Okay, well, I don't know if we want the 3-ball specials. We want the regular 3-ball bets, which should be here. Oh, are they not going to have them posted yet because of the tee times, or no? Okay, they do have them posted. Okay. So Spawn and Mitchell, believe it or not, it's crazy that we ended up picking those two in particular. Could have picked anyone out of the field, right? But we picked two of the best ball strikers available, and they're matched up against each other, right? JJ Spawn's plus 105. Keith Mitchell was plus 150. Now that, I guess if you were going to take any of them, right, you'd go to Keith Mitchell there at plus 150. But yeah, those two matched up against each other is like kind of the worst case scenario, because ideally, right, we want to find a matchup where it's a good guy going against somebody that maybe wasn't as successful in that category. Actually forgot. I was supposed to put in my Uber Eats order before I got on live stream here. Let's send that through. Oh, geez. Oh, well. Gonna have to wait a little bit longer, I guess, out there for my food. That's okay. Let's go back to these matchup board, though, and try and find something a little bit better. I'm going to stick away from the Højgaard one because I know he's going against Rasmus. And though we're fading his fairway line, I still think Rasmus is going to play well. So I don't know if that's the best one to go out there and play. So let's cross those up. Let's look at Salinda. I'm assuming he's not in like some superstar group, because it's Isaiah Salinda that we're talking about here. I don't see a line over here on DraftKings. That's a little bit concerning. Oh boy, and we're not going to have a line out there for him. So yeah, nothing over there as well. So maybe he's with like an amateur or something like that. Sometimes that's the case with those players out. They don't always post odds on the books out there for those players. So who else could we look at? That's kind of a bummer. Let's look at Jake Knapp. Jake Knapp's really playing well. He is in one of the better groups, so we'll have to see who he's playing against. But it's Knapp versus Thigala and Echevarria. And Thigala, it's not like he sets up terribly for tomorrow, but his shots gains profile wasn't all that impressive. He carried himself with the putter, which you could say could mean that he's due for a little bit of regression. And then Echevarria also didn't have his fastball today. He lost on approach, also lost off the tee, and then gained 3 strokes putting. This is kind of like the perfect scenario of what we're looking for, right? Two guys that struggled with the ball striking, but only did it with their putting. And then Jake Knapp, who did also make a fair amount of putts. You can see over there, right? He gained 1.8 strokes over there with the putter, but he also gained 2.5 strokes approach, right? Unlike the other two players that were both into the negative in the two ball striking categories, Jake Knapp at least was out there striping it with the iron. So I think this is a bet here at plus 175. Now, I'm not sure what kind of odds you can get on these other sites, so let's do a little bit of line shopping ourselves. So plus 180 over there on Fanduel, that's a little bit better. Obviously, get the best line available. Wrong tab. Let's get to the right one. And plus 175 on Caesars. So yeah, that plus 180 over there on FanDuel. If I can get that same number on Hard Rock later, they don't have their board posted quite yet. Even if I can get the plus 175, I'll probably bet that over there with Jake Knapp. A few other props that we can try to look through on here. So we're trying to find those same sort of scenarios where we can find guys that ball strike it well against guys that maybe weren't hitting it as well. Let's look at Alejandro Tosti, because Tosti not only is a player that hit the ball well today, but he's got really good course history here. He nearly won at this event last year. So just to show you it, he gained nearly 2 strokes off the tee. Also a stroke over there with his approach play. But let's see who he's matched up against. And I got something in my eye. Just sub-ideal. Let's see. But no Tosti 3 balls? Is that real? Oh boy. What is with them not posting odds for some of these? It's some of the guys I really want to bet on too. Yeah, is that right? Nothing on Tosti as well. Unfortunate. So also can't bet on that stud. That looked like he would have been a pretty good bet, but hey, you don't always get what you want. That's life. Let's see who else is a potential bet. So Chan Kim, he's another player that I kind of wanted to deep dive. So just to show you this with Chan Kim, the reason why I like him is the approach play and off the tee play were all into the positive. And he lost over 2 strokes putting. That's a kind of like a perfect stat profile for a little bit of regression in round number 2. The other players we got to research now are who the hell he's matched up against, which fingers crossed that we can actually bet it. So it's Alex Smalley and Mark Hubbard, who I know Mark Hubbard doesn't set up the worst stat-wise. He's due for some short game regression. In fact, that's why I'm playing him over there in my lineups, because he stat-wise sets up pretty well. And then the other one is Smalley, who's the favorite in the group. Smalley's a tough fade, but let's see how he was playing. So he lost on approach. So I'd say this is like a yellow light sort of matchup, just because like Smalley is a really good player, but hey, at least he didn't have his fastball over there with his iron play, and his putter was a little bit off. I don't like this one nearly as much as that plus 180 that you can get over there in Jake Knapp, but plus 190. Let's see what we can get over here in FanDuel. Maybe we can get slightly better odds. So yeah, he's plus 200 over here on the FanDuel side. Yeah, at plus 200, I'd bet that. In fact, if you can get this plus 180, plus 200 over here on Chan Kim, those would be the 2 matchup bets that we take over here for the live stream. So I can't bet them myself quite yet. I wish I could over there on Hard Rock. They're always a little bit late to the party when it comes to some of these odds, but I'll definitely be doing all my line shopping over there. Sometimes, I got to say, by the way, Hard Rock, call them a monopoly all you want, right? Some of their outright betting odds can be pretty terrible. For the matchup betting market, they have some really favorable odds. Not every time, but a lot of the time out there in a lot of those 3 balls. So just do your line shopping, especially if you have Hard Rock available. They've got some of the best odds, I'd say, out there on those markets. But that's how I do my research out there for matchups, right? You could take that same sort of idea and apply it out there to the rest of the field. You just want to find guys that hit the ball sustainably out there from one day, that especially for like round 2, because you don't have the cut line where you have some guys that just sucked out there from round 1 that you can actively look to target out there for round 2. So not only do you just go up here to the ball striking list, but we can look at the guys who sucked too, right? We can go to the bottom end of the ball striking list and try and target some of these players. So you might want to consider doing it that way as well. You want the nastiest high paying prop? Probably those 2 free balls we just did, right? If you went out there and you parlayed those together, I'm not exactly sure if you can on most sports books, but if you can there, that might not be a terrible way to get a decent payout structure. But yeah, we had that 3x slip that we did a little bit earlier. You might want to check that one out as well. Let's look at Rio, by the way. You're saying to take a look at Rio. He's had a good couple week stretch at this point, right? Last week obviously went very well for Rio. But round 1, yeah, he gained 2.6 strokes on approach. Who is he matched up with? You know, he can be an option, right? He hit the ball exactly how you'd be hoping to.
He's against Grazerman and then Ryan Palmer. So Ryan Palmer, he shot like +9. I don't want to say that he's like a non-factor, but I mean, he is really struggling out there on tour. He lost 7 strokes tee to green and lost 5 strokes ball striking. So just for the sake of this, let's throw him out of there. Max Grazerman wasn't much better, right? If you take a look at Max Grazerman, he lost strokes over there in the 2 ball striking categories. I don't know if you meant this for the 3-ball, man, or whether we're just calling him out as a decent play. But at +125, I mean, I wish the odds were better. Like +140, I'd be playing this matchup for sure. Let me see what he is over here in FanDuel before I completely condemn it. So yeah, he's +130 over here on the FanDuel side. If I could get a slightly better line out here on Royo, like I'll look at Hard Rock. There's a chance that they post him at +140, +150 or something like that, just based on their experience of what I've seen out there from the 3-ball matchups before. Then I would probably end up betting that. But yeah, I don't know if it was on purpose, but that was a good shout out there in Rio, that's for sure. He said he liked the PM tomorrow. Yeah, me too. So I mentioned that a little bit earlier on the Showdown stream that if there's a delay, that would really help that side of things. And it's really hard to predict, though. So who knows how it ends up playing out. But that's all I've got, guys, over there for the round 2 live stream. Going to be doing the same thing out there for rounds 3 and 4. So make sure to stop on by for that over there for the weekend. On the Patreon page, right, is where all my exposure out there for tomorrow will be. So if you guys want all the slips I'm playing in Underdog and Prize Picks, that is the place to go out there and join. 3-ball matchups, that sort of thing, I post over there on the Discord channel. So by the way, any membership gets you into the Discord. So even if you're just joining the DFS tier for all the projections on Draftkings, right, you'll still get the 3-ball matchup bets that I post over there in the Discord. Or if you join the prop tier as well, right, you get the Discord with either of those sort of memberships. But for all those prop projections, make sure to check out the prop tier, and the DFS tier is how you get all of those Draftkings projections that I showed out there before. And if you are somebody that plays both sides, I do have a combined tier, which is a little bit of a discount, right, if you take both of those at the same time. So check all of that out over there on the Patreon page. But that is all I've got over there for our exposure. Best of luck with everything that you guys are doing, and I'll see you guys out there for the live stream tomorrow night.